Hi, in this video we're going to work with how to solve for A in quadratics when given the vertex. Every time that they give us a problem where the vertex is provided based on a graph or a table, we want to make sure we use that h and k in this formula. So you ready? Let's begin. So in the first example, we're going to be given a graph, and in this graph, we're going to have a bunch of points as well as the vertex. The first thing I'm going to ask you to find is when you know that you have the vertex, I want you to write h and k right here. And the reason I do that is because in the formula that we just had on the previous slide, I know I have y equals a, x minus h, notice the h is 2, squared, and I know the k is going to be 1. So once I have that, my next step is, okay, well, how do I solve for a when I have a random point? I need x and y, I need that random point, but notice I do have a bunch of random points. I have this one right here, 0, 21, and I have 4, 21. It doesn't matter which point you use to plug it into here, you do want to plug 1 in so you get your answer. So I am going to use a y-intercept because a y-intercept definitely is easier when I can plug in a 0. So what it's going to look like is like this. It's going to be 21 is equal to a 0 minus 2 squared plus 1. And then my next step is going to be to actually go ahead and work this out. So in order to work this out, I need to make sure that I distribute correctly. So it's going to be 0 minus 2 squared. It's going to be 21 equals a 4, but I want to write the 4 in front of the a, so it's going to be 4a plus 1. Now, my last step is just go ahead and solve this. So I'm going to take this to the side. And I'm going to solve this. So it's going to be minus 1. 20 is equal to 4a. Last step, divide both sides by 4. And I'm going to get 5 is equal to a. Why is that so good? The fact that I know that a equals 5, I know my final answer. I'm going to take this 5 and plug it back into the vertex form. So my final answer is going to be y equals 5x minus 2 squared plus 1. And that would be my final answer. Okay? So every single time that you're given a question with the vertex, plug into vertex form and use that random point to solve for A. All right, let's try example 2. So in example 2, we're going to notice it's also a graph. That's okay. But we want to find the vertex. And the vertex is given to us. It's 7, negative 6. So because of that, I know that this is my h and k. So I'm instantly going to go ahead and plug this in. So it's going to be y equals my a, which I don't know, but it's going to be x minus 7 to the second power. And then minus 6 is my k. But I do need a random point. So my random point could be any point, but I'm going to pick 4, 3 because it is easier. I'm going to put 3 where the y is. A is going to be a, 4 minus 7, power of 2 minus 6. My next step is going to be solve for a. So I'm going to do 4 minus 7, which is negative 3 squared, which is 9. I don't want it behind the a, so I'm going to write this as 3 is equal to 9a minus 6. And then from here, it's a basic algebra problem. I'm going to get a by itself, so I'm going to plus 6 both sides. 9 is equal to 9a. And then last step is divide both sides by 9 so I can get a by itself. And I'm going to get 1 is equal to a. Now, the beautiful thing about this, you kind of can self-check your work. The fact that I got 1 is equal to a, remember what I said on the previous video, a is positive. So if a is positive, that means I need to have a parabola facing up, which I do. So my final answer is going to be y equals my a, which is 1. You could write it, you don't have to because it's a being 1. So I'm going to not write it because it's technically self-implied. Then I'll write the rest. X minus 7 to the second power minus 6. And that will be my final answer in quadratic form. Then we move on to example 3. Now, in example 3, understand that you now don't have a graph anymore. It's a table. And when you're given a table, it's very important to understand what is happening with a table. You could technically graph all these points and then connect the dots and it'll look like a parabola, which is great. Or you could find a shortcut. The shortcut is to look for 2 equal y values or as close as possible to each other. So I know that the middle point is going to be the vertex. So I have negative 7, but they're farther apart. I'll notice 5 and 5 are next to each other, which means I'm going to ask myself, what is the number between negative 5 and negative 1? And that number is actually negative 3. So I now know that this right here is my center point of my graph. Negative 3, 9 is my vertex. So because I know it's my vertex, I can go ahead and feel safe to say that this is my h and this is my k. So what do? We write the vertex form. Y equals a x minus, but notice the negative 3, so I'm going to make it a plus 3, power of 2, plus 9. I'm then going to take the random point, but notice you have a bunch of points. You have technically 5 points to choose from. You know which one's x, you know which one's y, so pick whichever one. I'm going to pick the easiest, negative 1, 5 as my random point. So please understand that point is going to be technically going to be known as your x and your y. So I'm going to take that x and y, I'm going to plug it into the equation I already have. So y is 5, so it's 5 equals a negative 1 plus 3 to the power of 2 plus 9. And then from here, again, it's basic algebra. We're going to go ahead and work this out. So negative 1 plus 3 is 2. 2 squared is 4. It's behind the a, which we don't want. So I'm going to bring down the 5, put the 4 in front of the a, plus 9, and then work this out. So it's going to be minus 9, negative 4 is equal to 4a. And then I'm going to divide both sides by that number that's in front of the a, which is 4. And I hope everybody agrees. I'm going to get negative 1 is equal to a. So that means I have a parabola that's facing down. So if I were to rewrite this as my final answer, it would be y equals negative in the front, x plus 3 squared plus 9. Remember what we said, we don't need to write the 1 because it's technically implied, which means my parabola is facing down. And if you wanted to reassure yourself, look at the values. Look at the y values from the left-hand side as you get to your vertex. It's negative 7, 5, 9, which means this parabola is going up. And then when it reaches this point, it starts to go 9, 5, negative 7 down, which means the parabola is going to look down, which means this is a maximum. And that's exactly right. I should have an a that's negative because it's facing down. So it's a way to self-check your work every single time. All right. And then in the last example, you're going to see that it's another table. That's okay. When given a table, ask yourself, look for 2 equal y values. Find the closest one. So 55, 55 would be negative 5 and 3. What number is between negative 5 and 3? If you're quick with the math, that's awesome. You could find it. If not, look for 2 closer y values, 7 and 7. So a number between negative 1 and 1 is definitely negative 1. Because it's 2 units away, 2 units away. So that's perfect. So I know at this point right here, that's my h and that's my k. So again, plug into your formula. Y equals a, which we don't know yet. X minus, but notice it's negative 1, so change that to a plus sign. And then minus 9 on the outside. Now my next step is going to be, what point am I going to use? Well, you can pick a bunch, but I'm going to pick 1 and 7 because that's the easiest point to pick. So I'm going to put 7 where the y is. A is a. X is 1 plus 1 squared minus 9. I'm going to work this out. I'm going to bring down the 7 and the equal sign in the a. So it's going to be 7 is equal to a. 1 plus 1 is 2 squared. So that's actually going to be 4. So I'm going to write the 4 in front of the a minus 9. Then my next step is going to be solve for it. So I'm going to plus 9 plus 9. 9 plus 7 is 16, which is nice because I'm going to go ahead and then divide both sides by 4, which gives me a good number. And it also gives me a positive number, which means that my parabola should be facing up, which I'm going to self-check in a little bit to show everybody why this is a good way to self-check your work. So your final answer will be y equals 4, x plus 1. Remember, the reason why it's a plus 1 was because my h was negative, which changes the sign, squared, minus 9. And that would be my equation of a parabola when solving for a. So now to self-check your work, 55, 7, negative 9. Remember, this is the middle point. 55, 7, negative 9. The values are going down. And then after negative 9, it goes from negative 9, 7, 55, which means it's going to go back up, which means I have a parabola facing up, which means an a should be positive. And that's how I solve for a when given the vertex. Thank you for watching.